Hello and welcome to From the Be All End, and we're back today to discuss. Now it's all official. Vincent Kompany is a Bayern Munich manager. Burnley don't have a manager. They have a temporary first-team coach in Craig Bellamy. I'm joined by Paul Woodhouse and Chris Bowden in a slimlined pod squad today. It's going to give us a chance to sort of explore a little bit deeper our thoughts on what's gone on. It's all official now, Chris. That's it. Well, last time we talked, it was still a sort of sense of if it all happens. It's all happened now. And Kompany was unveiled in Munich. It's all happened quite fast, hasn't it, really?
Yeah, so obviously with the bank holiday weekend, there was nothing going to happen over a sort of a 3-day period or so potentially. But obviously it came out on Tuesday. It was likely to be signed and sealed, and he would be presented within a day or so. And they've finally got their man at the 10th attempt, haven't they, Bayern? So congratulations to them. But no, I mean, joking aside, I think as I said the other week, I think working with elite players with his philosophy, I think he'll do well. I mean, you're going to do well with Sané's and Kane's and Musiala's and people like this, aren't you? You just for some reason they've had a disappointing season this time around, but the suggestions are he'll get a year to sort of fire them up and get them going again. But I don't know if he'll have a season like he's just had at Burnley, where results seemingly haven't mattered. But it's. I see Bayern even was sort of suggesting that they've not taken any notice of this season's results, and only the first season. But it's a strange situation. But we go on. We've lost managers we've not wanted to lose before, and we've lost managers we've been happy to see the back of. And Burnley Football Club's still standing, and we'll crack on, and we'll try and get promoted at the first attempt again.
Yeah, Woody, what do you think now that you see him stood there in well, he was wearing a white shirt with a collar today, not that scruffy white t-shirt, weren't he? You were like making a bit of an effort for it. But how did you react to his press conference and what's gone on for the last couple of days?
I was egging Erik ten Hag coming up on the rails on Saturday, hoping just to stymie it and completely bugger him up at the last minute, but it didn't quite happen, did it? It's I don't know. It's this. As I just spoke about yesterday, this kind of airbrushing out of Burnley, like we don't exist anymore, which you can understand because you're seventh choice and you've just had a shithouse in the Premier League. You don't want to be reminding your new employees and your fans how shit you've been. You don't want to reiterate that you've just been at Burnley and gave him the worst season ever in the history of Burnley, and you didn't, and the board didn't really want him, and they didn't have anybody else to go to. Other than that, though, God bless him. I don't think he's mentioned the word Burnley once since he's gone. Other than
no, he didn't. Matt Scrafton noted it in his piece for the Burnley Express that 42 minutes of a press conference, the word Burnley was not mentioned once. He did refer to, things that happened during the last year or two, and I think he mentioned Turf Moor once, but actually the word Burnley was totally absent from the entire press.
Probably a Freudian slip, though, wasn't it? Yeah.
I mean, I must admit, I do find that as the Daily Soccer article we linked to on our Twitter was saying, to not even just do the cursory sort of, and I'd like to thank the Burnley fans for their support over the last couple of years. I'm sure they understand that I've got to take this new challenge on, or whatever verbiage you wanted to come out with. To not even do that, I think is disrespectful to Burnley fans. I don't think it's being needy and expecting to have statements and stuff from Kompany or anything, but just an acknowledgement that, hey, I'm sorry, last time you heard from me, I was saying it's going to be a really exciting future and we'll be celebrating on the pitch this time next year. Actually, that's not going to be happening with me because I left within 12 hours. I was out of town and I've never been back since. I haven't even cleared my desk by all accounts. I'm sure it was very tidy anyway, but... I think that's a bit out of order. Am I being oversensitive about that, Chris?
Well, I think in other circumstances, I mean, it's such a staggering move that, to go from Burnley to Bayern. You think of the managers we've lost, and Owen Coyle obviously went to Bolton, and I made sure I was the first face he saw when he came through the press room door at Bolton, and he'd have to answer for what he'd done, and he noted it, and he came and he gave us he gave us 15, 20 minutes of his time where we just spoke about the situation in leaving Burnley after he'd done his spiel on being a 12 goal legend and all that at Horwich. But obviously Eddie went back to Bournemouth, and again, nobody travelled down to Bournemouth, but there were people. So the situation there, he'd obviously lost his mum, etc. The draw of being in and around his friends and family was too strong. But there was nobody going to fly out to Munich and say, "Oh, by the way, Vincent, can I just have a quick word for the Burnley fans?" So you then it's one of those. It was probably a bit of a circus, and he's probably been inundated, and these old people want to know about in Germany is what's going to happen. How he's going to bring success back to Bayern. But it would be nice. I mean, the club aren't going to put something out by him. So you would be just. It would be nice. It'd be very dignified and very gracious if he were to just sort of pen a few paragraphs. But I will say, I mean, he was an absolute gentleman in how he handled sort of my departure. I'd only worked with him a couple of months, and he couldn't have been more courteous. And I mean, he sort of gave me a bit of a pep talk when it was my final press conference at Gawthorpe and at Wigan after my final game. He actually, he got all the reporters in the room to sort of give me a round of applause and things like this. And he was just, he didn't have to remember. He didn't have to do anything. But he's, I'd like to remember him as a decent gent. And I'm sure, if he has the opportunity, I'm sure he will sort of, give us his thoughts at some stage.
But it only kind of took JJ Watt 2 minutes. Just to do a little bit of and I don't expect Vincent to do, a video such as that, but it only needed a mention. It's like the fact that there's been no recognition that he's managed Burnley in this last couple of weeks seems very, very peculiar. And it almost speaks to, I don't know which article it was, where they were talking about how he never explained things to certain players and he just expected them to do their jobs. They got picked at training and there was short shrift. And he didn't seem the best of man managers. And it feels like there's a little bit of that it's like, deal with it, sort it out, I'm moving on, you move on as well. Which, to a greater or lesser degree, feels like the Australian cricket way, but we're not saying we want to be mollycoddled and, cosseted back to health or anything along those lines, but it's just nice to say, thanks, Burnley, we had some times. Leave it at that.
Is that the Guardiola way? The way in terms of how he treats players.
Yeah.
I pick the team, and you don't get no explanations.
You get shunted off to Bayern Munich like Cancelo and Sane.
But you look at how Edison's reaction when he came off against Spurs, for example. There's no sort of like arm round the shoulder. Edison's kicking bottles and throwing his gloves, and he just wasn't happy, wasn't amused whatsoever. But it's just that's what I didn't like, to be honest. I didn't like Guardiola sticking his 2 penneth in. That's disrespect. Disrespect to Burnley, and everyone knows that you can't turn down
the comment that it didn't matter that Burnley were relegated.
Yeah, things. Of course it does. I mean, I don't know the situation at the club, but you always hear about clubs that are relegated who shed non-playing staff. And we don't know, there'll be wages will be cut, etc., etc. There may well be job losses. I don't know, but it does matter that Burnley got relegated. It might not matter to Pep, but it does matter, and the results did matter over last season. Even though, like I say, Vincent, as a few people have said, he played it as if it was development football, and we're not going to print the results in the paper on a Monday morning. We're just going to say, well, they conceded 3 goals on the break, but they played very well.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think what Pep's probably saying, and it reflects, I think, the attitude that someone like Guardiola and someone like Kompany probably has, is it doesn't matter to Vincent's career that Burnley got relegated. That's probably what he was trying to say.
Yeah.
Don't let that relegation cloud your judgment of him. Well, if you've watched every game that Burnley played last season, as we all have, it does cloud your judgment of Vincent Kompany as a manager. Because if I was sat down talking to some Bayern Munich fans about what they can expect, they probably wouldn't like what they were going to get told. But you know, Pep's sticking up for his man there, isn't it? You know, we can read lots into the whole Guardiola thing about whether he's been parked at Bayern to come back to City when Guardiola leaves. I'm sceptical of that one myself, but it's history now, isn't it? It is history now.
Yeah. It's like Steven Gerrard was parked at Rangers and Aston Villa, wasn't he? You know, you can't. Yeah, I think you go back 30 years ago. I think everyone presumed Brian Robson was going to be a Manchester United manager at some stage, and just never. You can't do that, can you? You just cannot predict the future in that sense. You know.
No. And if it goes completely pear-shaped from Bayern Munich, then he's not going to get the job at Man City. So there is no direct succession plan there, I don't think. But we'll see what happens with him. Personally, I'm not going to be following the Bundesliga any more or less next season because of this. I'm not going to be going to the extreme of supporting the opposition against Bayern Munich, nor do I have any sort of residual sympathy for Kompany to support him either. I think I'm going to try and be fairly indifferent to it if I can, but he's moved on. We should move on. I mean, the club has obviously got no choice but to move on. The news today is that Craig Bellamy and Mike Jackson have been put temporarily in charge of the team, even though there is no team because they're all on holiday, and the 40-odd full professionals that Burnley have are not around the training ground. But a bit of a weird one, that, would you? I mean, what do you think they've done that for?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I suppose it's like, you know, that idea of continuity. There's still, you know, somebody at the helm to do stuff. And there's nobody else in the club that they could turn to, arguably. There's an element of desperation about it, isn't there? You know, because, we'd heard that Bellamy wasn't going quite a while ago and wasn't going to join, was wanting away from Burnley. But we're also expecting Mike Jackson to go as well, weren't we? And he obviously came back. And now the next thing you know, they're shuffling papers on the desk again, waiting to do the 120 hours of re-coaching or whatever it is they're going to do. But it just, I don't know, it seems a slightly odd thing to do, but in the absence of there not being anything there, it might be just they're trying to fill a vacuum that isn't there because, like you say, there isn't a team at the minute to do any training with. So it's either a good thing, bad thing. I mean,
what they're going to do? Like I say, I presume they're going to be on holiday themselves. It's not like they're not going to be going through transfer plans because unless Bellamy is the man, and you say to him, go on and pick who you'd like to stay and pick who you'd like to go and bring in, etc. But what can they do other than? I believe there's a pre-season game arranged in Hoffenheim, is there? I think one of the names that's been mentioned, but. What they're going to do, arrange pre-season games. But it's just, the Kompany came in, I think it was the middle of June, 14th of June. So there's, you have a 2-week start on that. So if they're looking at a process, you'd like to think they could bring someone in a fortnight to get that underway as such. But it's utterly futile making them acting head coach. Well, what's he coaching? He's lad at backyard playing, on Sabutio table or something.
Yeah, it is a bit of a head scratcher, isn't it? Really, and I'd just make you wonder as well whether companies had conversations with Bellamy and Mike Jackson. Have they had phone calls and explanations about it? We don't know. We'll never find that out, I guess, until those guys get interviewed. But so they've also made it clear that, this is like while we look for the permanent manager. Mm-hmm. Obviously, there's still names being mentioned. On the last pod, we sort of discussed in sort of vague terms about the kind of manager we'd like to see and stuff. There are names being pushed out there now in the media. we know how this works. We know how the bookies thing works as well. That we could all go and put a tenner on someone now, and they'd go flying up the bookmakers' odds. But the names that are being mentioned, we should talk about them, shouldn't we? I mean, the one that's been put out there, and I think it's Alan Nixon who's said that there's talks going on. It's Frank Lampard. It's had a fairly negative reaction from what I've seen on social media and chat forums and so on. Chris, Lampard.
Again, he's one of those that we all know the playing career he had, and he had a semblance of success with Derby, him taking them to the playoffs, into the playoffs there. Gave Mason Mount his head, and Tomori as well was at Derby, wasn't he? Tomori's obviously Chelsea won't give him a sniff, but he's gone away to Milan and been excellent. But ultimately, he failed at Chelsea with a very, very gifted group of players that Tuchel picked up and won the Champions League with. And, he then goes to Everton and they stay up by the skin of their teeth despite, spending a few quid. And again, I'll get pilloried for mentioning him again, but a better manager has come in and spent a fraction of what Frank spent and kept them up. Finished, he's a better manager. We sacked a better manager 2 years ago than Frank Lampard. So have you ever looked at a Lampard team and thought, that I can see the process, I can see the shape, the pattern, the everything. It's just, to me, he's one of those managers who just picks 11 good footballers and says, go out there and score more than the opposition. I just don't see a great tactical mind there.
The thing about Lampard that, I thought that he was doing something interesting with that Derby team. I mean, they did pretty well, really, didn't they? He had some good loan players in there, and they were, I think, he had Mount there, didn't he, at that time?
Yeah.
At Derby. And Harry Wilson, who was, I think, with them at that time as well. And they were a pretty decent side, lost in the playoff final. That could have been different. He could have had a promotion if, one game. And then at the start of his Chelsea reign, when they had the transfer embargo, didn't they? And he had to throw the kids in. And Chelsea suddenly, I remember thinking, I quite like this Chelsea team. They've got a lot of them England under-21 players who'd come through. And then as soon as they started spending money and bringing players in, it seemed to fall to bits, didn't it? He was much better suited, it seemed, coaching a Derby County or a very young Chelsea side than he was dealing with expensive players in the dressing room. That's how it struck me. And maybe he bit off too much, too early, really. Maybe as happens quite a lot, and as may well happen to Vincent Kompany, that you suddenly, maybe you're not ready for dealing with those big characters or whatever. But I don't know. I mean, I know there's a lot. He wouldn't be top of my list, but I do think that you can look at it and say, well, has he done more than Vincent Kompany had done before he came to Burnley? Yeah, Vincent Kompany never got a team to fourth in the Premier League. He got Anderlecht to third in the Belgian League, and we know how good the Belgian League is because we've seen what their player of the year has been like last year. But, Woody, what's your thoughts on Lampard?
I think overall, what we're not necessarily looking at is that, I think this crop, even bloody Scotty Parker and some of these send shivers down your spine, but most of these could get you out of the Championship. And we've got to remember that Derby only just scraped into sixth position, didn't they? And there were still some Derby fans extremely pissed off that he didn't do better with that side. So there's an argument that he underachieved with that Derby side.
Right.
Anyway, besides that. But this idea of getting us out of the Championship, pretty much any grandma and the dog could get us somewhere near. Let's put it that way. However, it's that next step. It's, these people who can't manage in the Premier League. And we need somebody to manage it in the Premier League, not just get us up. We've seen these past 2 years, the folly of that. Lampard's not necessarily going to do it. Scotty Parker's definitely not going to do it. So it's who's the person who can not only take us up, not only rebuild this mess, but also do a job and make us competitive, even though in the lower half of the Premiership. And I think that's what needs to be found. And I think, don't get me wrong, I think Frank Lampard could do reasonably well, in fact, very well, and in fact, get us up. But can he take that next step?
Yeah, that's a really good point. Because we don't want to go through again what we've just been through, do we? We don't want to go up and be totally uncompetitive. So if you're taking that criteria, which I think is a pretty good criteria to take, who is there who could take us up and then get us to finish 13th or 14th in the Premier League? Of those names, there's only really one name jumping off that list at me, to be honest, and it's David Moyes. If you're looking at that sort of character, who's a hard one
Parker's
to get.
done it twice. Parker's done it twice, but seems to have, there seems to be some stigma around him. And, he was right. I mean, I'm not advocating for Parker, but I thought he was rather harshly dealt, certainly at Bournemouth, on the back of a, one-off hiding against Liverpool, really.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Actually, he's won, twice won promotion, albeit with probably the most gifted squad in the Championship, and then probably the most expensive squad in the Championship. So,
which is what he would have at Burnley.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, Moyes' one. I mean, I believe he's still got a home in Lancashire. As you say, it's just. But again, we seem to pigeonhole managers, don't we? They all carry some sort of stigma.
Yeah.
That was interesting. Was it Rafa Hernigstein was saying that Kompany won't be sullied or tarnished by this season he's just had. See, in Germany, they tend to sort of, they forgive you an unsuccessful season or two. But you look at that, Moyes is just boxed off as he's boring, direct. And West Ham, they've had an appalling end the second half of the season. But as he said, it's just, he gave them one of the greatest nights in the club's history, to win the Conference League. It's just magic. I mean, I'm watching obviously hoping the English side win. It was a magical moment. That I really, really enjoyed seeing that and the celebrations. A day or two later in that neck of the woods in London. But he's a damn good football manager, isn't he? But
exactly.
Is he the right fit for the group we have? He's worked with. He can organise a back four. He's played. He's used European footballers. Ogbonners and people like that at the back, and to bring Kudus in. Cornet's not had much of a look in, but Skamaka had a in and out season, and then he was off. And he'll point to Rice being a big the biggest loss. But he can work with European footballers. He can work with British footballers. But it's whether people see through that stigma of being an
image thing. A lot of it is with managers. A lot of it is to do with image. I mean, I think half the reason why people don't like Scott Parker is because of the way he dresses. He just gives off a certain vibe, doesn't he? Like, which puts some people off. Other people might think that makes him very progressive or something. But there is this like,
Parker.
and Moyes has got this sort of grumpy, sort of Scottish dour sort of image and everything. But as you say, he's had experience of his West Ham side played some pretty good football at times, didn't they? Attacking football. And I mean, they're a fan base that loves to think that they've got this, Academy of Science and all this kind of stuff, and the West Ham way and all that. And they put up with him for quite a long time. They weren't having Sam Allardyce, were they? But they put up with David Moyes. He doesn't seem like an ALK sort of signing, though, does it?
No.
You look how we veered, though, in recent history, and you go from like a Cotterell to a Coyle to a Laws to a Howe to a Deitch to it's we've gone like chalk and cheese, haven't we? So I mean, obviously they've not, they've only appointed the one manager so far, so they're not maybe that well up on that sort of history. But it wouldn't be un-Burnley like, would it?
No, to go for the opposite. No, I mean, you were saying that last week, weren't you, Woody?
Yeah. I mean, everybody wants to play expansive football, don't they? Everybody wants to see attacking football. Everybody wants to be entertained. But then there's that piece of, at some point, you've got to be a little bit pragmatic, and you've got to be able to grind out a result every now and again. You know, and you can't necessarily swing from the likes of what we had last year with Vincent, you know, and not have a plan B, except you can't go down that route again, because it'll be just up and down, unless you just want to have a great time in the Championship, go up and come back down again. Maybe that's our destiny for a couple of seasons. I don't know. But yeah, and you look at these, you know, great goals in the Premiership. I still remember that one again, the QPR, which QPR, no, Everton, wasn't it? Under Dash, 24 passes. That's still infinitely more than, you know, Vincent put together to score last season in a Premier League. You know, there's still that level of expansiveness. They're just pragmatic about the football. If they've got the players and it warrants the opportunity, they'll play a little bit more expansive than if they've got to like shore it up and be a little bit tight. And I don't know. I don't see why that's necessarily a bad thing. But that isn't to say that there isn't somebody else out there who could be a perfect match that we don't necessarily know too much about.
Jeff Hendricks.
Jeff Hendricks on a free. I'm going to say. Great minds.
But so's Matt Ritchie, who was one of those Dash nearly signings about 4 times, weren't he?
Apparently, it's his dream to go to Portsmouth. So, but apparently, you know, I think they're expecting him to go to there. But no, I mean, he was I think he might have been Eddie's first signing when he went back to Bournemouth. I saw Bournemouth at Preston a couple of weeks after he'd left, and I got, you know, he got us like tickets in the lounge, etc. Sat with Mark Lawrence and having a posh meal, etc. But yeah, I think Richie had just gone there for thick end of $500,000 in League One, hadn't he? So yeah, he's probably, I think his time's gone, maybe.
Oh yeah. But it's, I mean, I don't know what they're going to go with. Steve Cooper appears to have suggested that he's not interested in going back to the Championship. And believes he must have some chance of a sniff at the Premier League.
Leicester, isn't it? Yeah, Leicester, I think.
Yeah.
They were supposedly keen on Van Nistelrooy as well, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're competing with Leicester fishing in the same pond as Leicester City at the moment.
Corberan as well. I think he'd been linked with Leicester, hasn't he?
Yeah, he's an interesting one, isn't he? I think he does feel like an ALK potential signing, does Corberan, doesn't he? And a lot of people do rate him and think he's done a good job at West Brom. What other names are intriguing? I mean, you know, they're going to be looking at a lot of options, I would think. I have a feeling they'll go for something very left field. You know, I think Pace will have consultants and advisors and various people coming into him with names, and they'll be trying to be clever. I think they'll be trying to go for somebody left field. But is there any? I mean, we see all these names flying around, Van Nistelrooy being mentioned, and other people. Is there anyone who's caught your imagination and you think, oh yeah, that'd be good? I mean, Greaves is like a big fan of Will still.
Yeah, I'm yet to be convinced
about that. Yeah.
I mean, they got. I mean, Burnley were linked with was it this Raphael Wiki fella who then today he's linked with Sunderland. So it's just people are chucking names into a hat, aren't they? This Knutson, who I don't think anybody believes exists. He gets linked with every job, and he never ends up getting one. And I think he's just a figment of someone's imagination, isn't he? But Rossinia again. It's just he's had a talented. I mean, yeah, his achievements at Hull is terrific. I mean, I think they were 21st when he took over the season before the one that's just finished, and he's got them into the playoffs this time. But they threw the boat out, didn't they? In terms of, you know, the Carvalho on loan from Liverpool, and obviously Anas went there. There's Scott Twine early this season. You know, a lot of people feeling that they should have been should have been higher than they ended up in. But he's another. I think he's got great potential, Rossini, but I don't see him in a job of this caliber just yet.
No, I think Wiki's arguably a better shout than maybe giving credit to him, and he did have that Basel side that stuffed United and City at City in the Champions League, didn't he? And he had that. Was it Spell Chicago Fire?
Yeah.
He didn't pull up any trees, did he? But they
not many have at Chicago Fire.
No, but they spoke very highly of his style of play and the way that they played. It was more of I believe, an injuries thing than anything else. But it's like I'm pretty sure most of these could do a reasonable job.
Yeah.
It's then that step. Although once you do start going down into the 14s to 1s, it starts getting extremely, extremely frightening. Once Steve Bruce and John Terry pop up out of nowhere.
Alan Kirbishley, is he not on it? 33 to 1 somewhere.
No, I mean Potter's not coming.
No,
and that's the thing. It's these next tier managers that we see who obviously aren't going to come anywhere near. And I do like Burnley being this club who unearths young managers, gives them the chance, and moves along. I really don't think that what's happened with Vincent should tarnish anybody's idea towards that, because I think it's obviously the model and the way forward. The same with the players. We're going to unearth more gems than we're not going to. Same with managers. And it should be testimony to us as a club especially over the last decade. We've been quite forward thinking, I think, in some of these appointments, and it shouldn't really stop us doing it again.
No, if you look at the careers, you look at Eddie Howe and you look at Sean Dyche, they're managers who've left Burnley and gone on to bigger things,
exactly.
Really. Vincent Kompany has. So, it's an attractive job. Might look a little bit chaotic when you look at it, but, managers, they're desperate to get into these jobs as well, aren't they? So they'll look at it. And if somebody says, we've got a massive squad of 40 odd, you're going to have to get rid of half of them, that's not going to put off too many, I don't think.
No. No.
You've got something to start with.
Yeah.
The interest is which of these players who we felt have been discarded could come back into the equation. Your Twines and Bensons and even Weghorst. You think, you look at his age now. I mean, he's away with Holland at the minute. We'll see how he gets on in the Euros. But if he comes back from that, he's 2 years before the next World Cup. He's possibly, it's a long shot for him to make that squad. He maybe thinks, do you know what? I'll have a crack at a season with Burnley. Try and give something back and try and get them into Premier League. And, stranger things have happened, aren't there? The resurrection of careers here and there. And it's
well, we all thought
Rude's the man. Yeah.
We all thought Jay played his last game, didn't we? Really, deep down.
Indeed. Absolutely.
I do wonder on that one. We'll never find out. Another thing we'll never find out, and no one will ever say on the record, but I do wonder if he'd have signed that contract if this news hadn't have happened with Kompany. I don't know. Didn't get much.
It's an interesting one, isn't it? Yeah.
Didn't get much time last season at all, and now he's signing a new deal. So, but which is great news. I think it's good. I think he can definitely play that Barnes role, if you like, from the promotion team, just to have, even if he doesn't start every time, someone in the Championship to bring him on with half an hour to go when you need a goal. I think that's good news. But there's going to be a lot of movement, isn't there? There's talk that Esteve might be on his way out.
Mm-hmm.
It is, we said there's going to be anarchy. It's going to be even more anarchy than we imagined with a new manager coming in as well. But you're right, Chris. I mean, Zarori and Benson must be thinking, fresh, clean sheet here, possibly. Fresh sheet of paper, start again.
That's it. Well, the thing, the problem is, we know that so many of this squad signed for the lure of playing under Vincent and not necessarily for playing for Burnley Football Club. And you wonder how many, like I said, we're looking at Jay and we're thinking he's staying because Vincent's gone. There'll be others who are thinking, will they stay now Vincent's gone, or will they want to go? I mean, we don't know how sort of Mike Trezor feels, whether he feels hard done to, that he didn't get many opportunities, or whether he thinks Vincent's why I came. Vincent's not here anymore. What am I doing in the northwest of England where it chucks it down all the time? I honestly don't know. But I mean, the Esteve one was a strange one, wasn't it? It was quickly. So I saw it was quickly denied by sort of national journalists on Everton's behalf, saying no, Everton aren't interested. And you look at him and think, he's not Sean Dyche centre half, is he? He's a good. He's shown he's a decent player, but a 16-game window where he's shown, he's got a bit of pace, but he's quite raw. He's young, and you're thinking, surely to God, Sean, they sell Branthwaite this summer, and they bring in a proper seasoned operator, don't they? That's his way, Sean. They develop players, and he'll bring in a seasoned player, like sell Onana, Branthwaite, and then see what they can bring in.
Yeah, there's more chance of him getting Ben Mee than there is Esteve.
Well, precisely. You probably are right in that sense. Yeah. I believe he's got another year at Brentford, hasn't he?
Final item then before we call it quits on this one. Bit of news coming out. A new sponsorship agreement with Visit Detroit, who are going to be, this is a new one for us, but there are 7-a-side North Carolina tournament front of shirt sponsor. But did seem to suggest it's a partnership that might involve a little bit more than that. I mean, these things are almost invented for us to mock, aren't they, really? But, there is part of me just says, well, if you're going to play a 7-a-side tournament in America that's on ESPN, why not bring in a better revenue from a shirt sponsor from it? It's better than that. I'd rather have Visit Detroit on the front than some weird Asian booking firm that's probably going to get us sued in America or something anyway. But Woody, what were your thoughts when you saw this one? We don't need to necessarily mock the ridiculous language of the press release about the synergies and values and all that, but you can do.
I wasn't going to, and you've done it very well, obviously. No, these visit type groups are very good at spunking money on spunking public money on these types of things. Because I've worked with a couple, one Visit West Virginia, who changed all the road signs in West Virginia from West Virginia, it's wild and wonderful, to West Virginia, it's open for business. You can understand how literally everybody in West Virginia lost their shit, told them to take them all down, and they had to replace them. That's the kind of money that they lose. I also knew within Ohio, somebody worked with Visit Ohio on a new logo, and it was just like this yellow outline of the boundaries, and everybody just went, that just looks like somebody's pissed Ohio into the snow. And that was just the general 2 bits of feedback. And I honestly, compared to those two, this is a fantastic move from a Visit, stroke city type affair. And it's great. And like we said, that Detroit side, it's a shame they didn't necessarily mention, Detroit City as the football club, because we think like Burnley fans could at least like the idea. They're like the equivalent of a St. Pauli, a kind of a punk anarchic outfit of a football club. So, but yeah, well played.
Yeah, they are a really interesting club, Detroit City. They were sort of set up by hipsters, really, who were there was like a local amateur league in Detroit, and they formed a combined 11 from that amateur league and called them Detroit City, and played in the Rust Belt division of the NPSL, which is like the 4th division. They've now gone up to the USL. They're one of the bigger clubs in the USL, the level below MLS. One day they'll be in MLS, I think, either them or some franchised out MLS version of them in that city. But they've got a really interesting fan scene there and stuff. So if there ever was any real sort of twinning between Burnley and Detroit, that would be a really interesting thing. I don't suspect that's what really they've got in mind here, though. But Chris, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, it beats Visit Rwanda, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's sort of changed meaning over the last year or so, hasn't it, really?
Indeed. But, Yeah, the Motor City, isn't it? It's the Lions have had the greatest season in 50 odd years, haven't they? The city's thriving, isn't it? It's we've had.
I did see one suggestion. We should have Jimmy Mack as the music when we come out.
Yeah.
There you go.
Instead of that weird soft rock monstrosity that there is now. Whatever that thing is. Yeah, there we go. We have whinge. So we have managed to get through nearly an entire episode without having a whinge about anything. But there you go.
What an old bloke's last comment that is.
It is. Yeah. Let's get some 1960s Motown on the turf. But some Northern Soul. Right. Jolly good. Well, this is going to go on and on, isn't it, for a while, this manager chase. And I'm sure we'll revisit again in the near future. Obviously, no football this weekend on the Burnley front. There's Champions League final, though. Real Madrid against Borussia Dortmund. And enjoy that if you're watching it.
Yeah,
and we'll be back.
Ian Martin. You can watch
Ian Martin in action in the Champions League final. There you go.
Who's been left out of the Holland squad, I believe, hasn't he, for the Euros?
Has he?
Yeah, so they've got a decent selection to pick from if they have.
Yeah, so there's a reason to watch the Champions League final. See Ian Martin again, and hopefully have a look at Dortmund and hope they're in good shape for spanking Bayern Munich next season. All right, all the best. Up the Clarets, and speak to you soon.
Jimmy McElroy to Watson. Go.